So, the start of the new Premier League season is fast approaching, and it's certainly been one of the most active transfer windows across the board, with even the current title holders splashing the cash to reinforce their position at the top once again. We've seen clubs sign players from rival clubs. The free market has been explored effectively, whilst many new young talents have joined the big time and will be looking to become the next big star. With all that being said, I'm going to give my predictions for the upcoming season, and one thing I am certain of is that unlike last season, we're going to see a lot of fans sweating on the last game, as their teams will be battling out for a spot at glory or devastation. So to kick things off, I'm going to start by looking more towards the bottom end of the league table. After back-to-back seasons of the newly promoted teams going straight back down, it's caused many fans to question whether the gap between the top flight and the second division is becoming too big, and it's certainly a viable concern. However, this is the season where I feel like the curse is going to get broken, and I'm placing all of my cards on the table for Sunderland to be the team to do it. When looking at the three promoted sides, Burnley were unbelievable defensively as they matched the all-time English clean sheet record. But I just feel like that lack of firepower up front will prove costly, as naturally Burnley will leak more goals against stronger sides, and combining that with them losing key assets such as Egan Riley and James Trafford, Burnley will simply not have enough to avoid the drop zone, in my opinion. Then we look at Leeds, who for me are in that middle ground. They've invested lots of money into their defence, which was certainly necessary, but I'm not quite convinced that they'll have enough to squeeze outside of the drop zone. Although I'm not firmly against writing them off, but if they do stay up, it will most certainly go down to the wire. So interestingly, I actually place the most hope towards the team which went up via the playoffs, and you may be wondering why. And it's simply just a gut feeling at this point, which ultimately makes up for any prediction. Sunderland's owners have certainly splashed the cash this summer, and this was aided further with the sale of Joe Bellingham. They've gone for proven Premier League assets such as Adingra from Brighton, who I think is a great player. Then the likes of Riandel and Xhaka have joined, and they'll certainly bring great experience into this young squad. But the ultimate signing for me is Habib Diarra from Strasbourg, who play in France, who is a midfield player, and he completely ran the show against England when Senegal won 3-1 earlier this year. And I feel like he's going to be the key factor in Sunderland staying up. I won't go through them all, but they've also made another couple of young signings who were on the radar of other top flight clubs. So if all the stars align, it could be a brilliant season for Sunderland. And although I feel they will struggle on the road, every home game will be like a cup final, and I believe they'll pick up enough points to survive. But don't get things twisted. I don't see them coasting to safety. I see it more like how Nottingham Forest survived the drop zone in their first season back to the Premier League. And after that, they went on to build into a well-respected side within the top flight. So the ultimate question is, who will be the side to take that third relegation spot? Now, I'd be lying if I said that I had a set club within my eyesight for relegation, but I do believe that Wolves are the most likely out of the pack to join Leeds and Burnley. Last season they struggled even with Ait-Nouri and Cunha, so although they'll search for replacements, I think they're destined to be in the battle. I also think Brentford will have a significant dip after losing their manager, captain and best player this summer, whilst West Ham are a Jared Bowen long-term injury away from getting dragged into the battle. My next prediction moves towards the complete opposite end of the table, and that's the title race. Now, I've thought long and hard about this one, and I keep chopping and changing, and of course, more transfer activity will happen after this prediction, so I'm just going to go off how I see it right now. I actually believe that Manchester City, Liverpool and Arsenal are all going to be in the title race throughout the season, but one of those teams will drop out of the race towards the last 5 games. Liverpool are the current champions and have strengthened further, with the likes of Florian Wirtz and Ekitike bolstering their already explosive front line. And this will certainly take the pressure off of Salah to deliver the same numbers as last season. Then you've got the rejuvenated Manchester City, who have freshened their ageing midfield with the signing of Reinders, as well as having Rodri back, which will give Guardiola's side a major boost. Lastly, there's Arsenal, who for me have the best defensive unit in the league, and they've now recruited a long overdue centre forward with the arrival of Victor Gyökeres. If I had to choose a ranking, my gut is saying Arsenal third, Liverpool second and Manchester City first. I just feel like Arsenal were still lacking that title-worthy squad, which allows them to rotate key players throughout the season. And when bench players come on, it doesn't bring the same incentive as their title rivals. Signings like Madueke and Norgard are not title-winning worthy in my opinion, but their starting 11 certainly is, and it's crucial they avoid long-term injuries to their star players. But I still feel like they're just going to fall short once again. So what will separate Manchester City from the current title holders of Liverpool? And the answer is not much at all. And as I earlier touched upon, Rodri has returned back from injury, and he's certainly the heartbeat of that team. In fact, he went 74 games in a row, where when he started for City, they didn't lose. So with him being back fit, this will without question bring Man City back into the race. I also believe there will be a resurgence of form from Phil Foden, a player who won Premier League Player of the Year just 2 seasons ago. Foden has recently admitted that he was going through issues on and off the pitch last season, but he seems to have overcome those, and he certainly gave some good signs in the Club World Cup too. And there's a lot of pressure on him and others with the departure of Kevin De Bruyne. But the last point is of course Erling Haaland. It's crazy to think that many believe that he had a poor run last year, and yet he still got 21 league goals. And so if he can bring that number back up to 30 and above, it's going to be extremely tough for any side to accumulate more points than City. Now, I'm certainly not overlooking Liverpool. You could argue that this is the strongest squad they've had in many years. But it's very tough to win the Premier League title in back-to-back years. Manchester City made it look like the norm after winning 4 in a row, but this is certainly a tough feat. I have no question that they'll score goals, and their midfield options are excellent, but I do worry about their newfound defence, as Liverpool had been familiar with their back four over many seasons. I also feel their options are significantly worse if any of the Liverpool backline drop out due to injuries. For example, if Van Dijk gets injured, who comes in? Gomez, but he's very injury prone too. And I know that can be counter-argued with, for example, what happens if Haaland gets injured. But I just feel like City are better equipped to find a way to score goals if Haaland's out. Whereas if Liverpool have someone like Van Dijk out, a lot of it will just collapse. But let me know if you agree. But the biggest question mark I have surrounding my prediction is based off City's involvement in the Club World Cup. Both Liverpool and Arsenal players had time off mentally and physically to recover, whereas City felt the frustration of getting knocked out against Al Hilal. And with Pep saying that this competition was the start of their season, rather than continuing on from the last, it could cause deflation amongst the squad. But I do doubt that. I think the players will get over it and they'll realise that this is a new season coming up, and that's in the past. So I am going to stick with my prediction of City to win the league, although I would not be surprised at all if any of the 3 mentioned sides got over the line come May. But my biggest point is I want it to go down to the line. I don't want it to be set and forgot about with 5, 6, 7 games to go. With how much money's been spent, all of these clubs should be expecting to be competing till the very end. Now, with me already establishing that Manchester City, Liverpool and Arsenal will uphold the top 3 positions, it leaves 2 Champions League spots left up for grabs. And I'm going to give the 4th spot to the Club World Cup champions Chelsea. The question I ask you is, if it isn't Chelsea, then who is it? All but most of the teams that have competed for 4th last season are now playing Thursday European ties, and this will of course impact their resting periods. If you look at Chelsea, they've got a massive squad, they can rotate around, and they'll be better equipped to deal with any injuries. Whilst I don't see, for example, Newcastle's squad being able to sustain the league form shown from last season, due to them qualifying for the Champions League. And there is data to go off of this, as the last time Newcastle qualified for the Champions League, the following season they dropped down to 7th. So ultimately, I do believe that the top 4 spots will be taken by the same clubs as last season, but the only rotation is between Manchester City and Liverpool. The next prediction which I have going into the new season is that I believe that Tottenham are going to return back into the top 6. Last season was certainly an interesting one for Spurs supporters. They finally managed to get their hands on silverware, but the season as a whole was certainly an excruciating experience. Spurs remarkably lost 22 league games, and if it wasn't for the bottom 3 being so poor, they might have been dragged into a relegation battle. But regardless of this, I think we'd all agree that their squad is not worthy of this same feat happening again. And I do believe they're going to come back a better side after breaking the silverware curse. The biggest reason for this prediction is based off the new beginnings with Thomas Frank, who is a manager that I rate highly as year after year he made Brentford a competitive side. And now is the perfect opportunity for him to enter onto a bigger stage with a squad which for me has undeniable potential to unlock. The likes of Mbeumo and Visser have a lot to thank towards Thomas Frank. He played to their strengths, and that's what I believe Frank will bring to this Tottenham side. Mohamed Kudus is a signing which I like a lot, whilst gaining the Premier League proven João Paulinho from Munich is one which will elevate Tottenham's midfield. Last season's finish in the league is still fresh on the mind of fans, but under Ange Postecoglou, they finished 5th in his first season, and I'm backing Thomas Frank to get them back into that position in the league. So the team which misses out on a Champions League spot goes to Newcastle, who I will be placing in 6th position. There's a lot of talk about Isak leaving, and of course that would be a huge blow. But if they receive a significant fee for their star man, then I'm confident that they'll recruit wisely. Newcastle have missed out on a lot of targets to bigger clubs this summer, which will be frustrating Eddie Howe. But it does show that their scouting team is looking in the right places. When looking at their current team, I like them a lot. I like Livramento and Lewis Hall as fullbacks, young and direct, whilst their midfield is an efficient machine and their wingers are pacey. But as mentioned earlier, I believe they will struggle with the Champions League schedule as they play a very aggressive front-footed style, which is very hard to maintain. So I will be giving them 6th spot. So now I'm going to look at Manchester United, a team which has slowly faded and worsened over recent seasons. However, I do believe that we'll see improvements under Ruben Almiron after he's had a full pre-season with the squad. And I have been impressed with the signings of Mbeumo and Cunha, who are Premier League proven players. There were also links of Bruno Fernandes going to Saudi, but that has since died off, which is a major boost to Manchester United's ambitions. Also, Benjamin Sesko, heavily linked with Man United, at the current time of me recording this video, that might get done. That would be a massive boost to their attacking options. I do still have question marks surrounding Almiron's philosophy of a 3-4-3 formation. It's a very difficult one to perfect in the Premier League, as I don't believe we've seen a team make it work since Conte won it with Chelsea almost 10 years ago. Despite this, my gut feeling says that United will return back into the top half. Nothing crazy, nothing drastic, but I am going to place them into 7th position. So following on, I've got Aston Villa in 8th and then Brighton in 9th position. Both are very well run clubs, but Villa especially are back in European football, but it wasn't in the competition that they would have hoped for. In the Europa League, it's so hard to perform when playing on Thursday and then returning back to league action on the Sunday, especially when travelling away. Newcastle have the luxury of maybe even playing a Champions League game on a Tuesday, whereas Villa are guaranteed to play Thursdays, and I think that this is something that will separate the pair. Then Brighton in 9th. You know what you get from them. Of course they'll be disappointed to lose João Pedro, but he was often injured for them last season, and I think they'll make the correct signings and adaptations. But once again, they will miss out on Europe. So a team which I haven't mentioned yet that finished in the top 6 last season is Nottingham Forest. They shocked everyone with their impressive defensive record combined with lightning quick counters. They have managed to keep their defence, which for me will guide them into the top half. But I'm less confident in their attack, as I have doubts over whether Chris Wood will maintain that form shown last season, as well as losing Alanga. They did keep Morgan Gibbs-White despite heavy interest from Spurs, which was a huge boost. But the whole situation just seems a bit offish, with the owner especially, and I do wonder if that will show on the pitch. They are also in a European competition, which similar to Villa will create Thursday fixtures, so I believe this will affect their momentum in the league as well. I'm giving Forest 10th place, but I wouldn't be shocked if they went even lower than that. So I've covered the top 10 and hinted at my bottom 3. I'm not going to go through all of the mid-table spots, so here is my full league table for you to see. So I'm going with Burnley, Leeds and Wolves to go down. Sunderland will escape the drop going into the last few games of the season. Brentford and West Ham will have nervy spells but will avoid the drop. And then the likes of Bournemouth, Fulham Everton and Crystal Palace will simply coast along in mid-table. So I've recorded this video on the 6th of August, and I'm sure there will be plenty of transfer business happening between now and deadline day. But as it stands, I'm rolling with this league table. But all I hope for is that this season offers a tense ending across both the bottom and top end of the table. And my gut feeling is saying that this will happen. Please do share your own predictions in the comments. It's certainly going to be an exciting season. Thank you for watching.